freerogernow.org. And Roman, I can't remember what his last name, but Roman Storm. Please, these are the other guys that Ian would like to see out, and we're working very hard to get the message in front of Trump.
Okay.
So I think everybody's prayers would be useful too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Are you open to taking questions? I don't know if we're going to have any.
Love questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mm-hmm.
No questions?
There we go.
This is amazing. This is pretty straightforward.
So let me tell my Bitcoin story. I tried to keep things very succinct there, but we talked about Bitcoin. We're the first media in the world on Free Talk Live on December the 28th, 2010. And a man named Gavin Andreessen heard that show. And Gavin was, at that time, he had been given the red keys by Satoshi Nakamoto. He was the head developer of Bitcoin. Gavin was a regular listener of Free Talk Live. In fact, he also sent us $3 a month for commercial-free podcasts. So he's an amplifier. Gavin sends a letter, says, "Hey, I'm an amplifier." Sends an email, it says, "Hey, I'm an amplifier. I want to explain Bitcoin to you. I want to come up to Keene to do it." And of course, if an amplifier says they want to meet us, I don't care if you want to show me pictures of your kids. I'm gonna, yeah, let's meet. So you send me $3 a month for my podcast? Absolutely, we're gonna meet. And he comes up to Thai Garden on Main Street in Keene, New Hampshire. We all had the drunken monkey, by the way. There's no alcohol in it. And it was the spiciest dish that was available. And several things happened that day. He explained Bitcoin to us. Instead of being our first encounter with Bitcoin, we're all like, "Is it backed by gold? No, that it stinks." And he explained the utility of Bitcoin, the way the cryptography and the mathematics work, and how it really did have value. And so we became convinced. I offered to sell him podcast ads, becoming the first ad venue in the world to accept cryptocurrency for ads in his magic internet money. He also wanted to make his first Bitcoin transaction with me, so he paid me. And we didn't have phone wallets back in 2010. He said, "I'll pay you when I get home." So I just ran it on my card, and then he sent me, I believe it was 46 Bitcoin later. And Ian had to figure out how to store it. So we started on a little website called mybitcoinwallet.com. And for those of you who don't know, this was the first Bitcoin scam. So, not your keys, not your coins, ladies and gentlemen. And the guy scammed on mybitcoinwallet.com. But then people threatened to assassinate him, and he gave back half of everybody's coins. So I had my 23 coins at this point. Ian's like, "I'm going to figure out how to run a real wallet." And he figured out how to do his. Then he showed me how to do mine. And I just had a little fob with a .dat file in it, and I could save my own Bitcoin. And then Roger Ver, the show that we did that night with Andreessen, not with him, but after we talked about it, and he heard about Bitcoin from us. He went on this manic 3-day binge on cryptocurrency, and he got really excited. And then he's like, "Well, now I want to pay my advertising bill with you guys in Bitcoin." So, and back then we didn't know anything. We thought they were like Swiss bank accounts. So I was having everybody deposit into the same address. As a matter of fact, I got a vanity address with sort of my initials. So I know which ones it is. It's still out there on the internet somewhere. Every once in a while, people put money in it. It's really weird. And so a lot of the early money went through this one address. I mean, there's enough money to buy a navy for a small country that went through, now in today's dollars, that had gone through that, because we were getting, from Roger, he had a ad bill of $3,500 a month, and this was probably 2012 or something that this was all occurring, and Bitcoin wasn't worth much then. So yeah, it was wild times with Bitcoin. And people love that story. And if you did love that story, please go to freeiannow.org and sign my petition, or freeroger.org and sign that one too. And don't forget Roman.
Yep. That's yeah. That's I actually want to say Mark and Ian are you guys are one of the reasons I'm in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So
I'm grateful that you moved for us.
Yep. So I listened to Free Talk Live when I still lived in Boston, and I even called you before I moved up here. You took the call. It was amazing.
Awesome.
I talked to you a couple times, and so it's really weird.
Surprising how available we were on the radio.
Yeah. No, it was phenomenal, and so it's amazing to be in the position of interviewing you. I'm used to going on Free Talk Live, so this is
I think it's great.
Unique experience. So, any other interesting stories you want to share?
No, I think those are my crypto stories. But who are we bringing up next?
Well,
Mark DeMeasel?
Mark DeMeasel, I think. I know Sal wants to come up too. But thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Knock him dead, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, Mark Edge is a legend. I thought he was maybe related to the Edge wallet, and then it turns out there is some story there too. Or was that just a joke?
Is the Edge wallet named after you? Is that actually? Oh wow! All right, so the Edge wallet is named after breaking news, named after Mark Edge. And by the way, exciting news on this front: Edge wallet now takes Zano. So this is very exciting. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, so thanks for the invitation. Yeah, I'm also here at Porcfest to help Roger Ver however I can. But yeah, it's been I had the privilege to be able to visit him in Mallorca since I live in Europe, so it's for me easy to make such a flight. And when I heard that he was out on bail, then I really wanted to check out whether he's okay. He's stuck there on that island, and my brother was there also arrested, went to prison. But that was just a small drunken man story. But in this case, it was very serious. So I've met him a couple of times there, and I've been very impressed how strong he holds up himself. He's true inspiration. Like I was once, or a couple of years ago, I was also chased by government agencies of Kenya, and that totally freaked me out. To the point that I stopped eating and I lost a lot of weight and was very stressed. But when I see him, you wouldn't know that he's actually in severe trouble just talking to him. He's focused on cryptocurrency, but projects like Zeno and you couldn't tell that. Of course, he shares that he's working hard on his case with his lawyers, and he's keeping his head very high there on that island.
Well, that's great because he's been there for about 416 days. So this has been a pretty exasperating process. And of course, I'm sure everybody here knows he's looking at 109 years potentially in federal prison here in the U.S. So
yeah, and that's very scary. He's really fighting for his it's really his life. It's freedom, but it's also his life. And he does take that very serious. So I don't know what else I can tell. Maybe you guys have some questions.
What did you first learn about Roger, or how far back does this go? I mean, I know you met him only recently, but I'm sure you've been tracking him longer than that.
Yeah, so for me, Roger Ver was like the same as for many of you guys. A guy I saw on the internet talking about Bitcoin, and but in a way that really is convincing. He's focused on not making money with it, but on the kind of freedom it can give you, kind of control it can give you over your own money, and also how it really helps in getting rid of a lot of evil that the government is doing, or governments around the world. So that story really clicked with me at the time when I looked at Bitcoin in 2011 or 2012. I had heard a little bit about it, but I started to really take it serious in 2012. And then I looked at Roger Ver's interviews and Eric Voorhees, and you had also Therese Meyer at the time and Da Vinci. I looked at all these guys, but it was mainly Roger Ver that convinced me to take that step and to also invest in Bitcoin. And since then, I followed his lead. Um, and also actually I was ahead of him in Bitcoin Cash because it's quite late. You think he invented that, but that's not the case. It was actually quite late to start to also support Bitcoin Cash. I actually invested before him the futures market Bitcoin Cash, and it took him half a year or so to also start investing in that. But then I had a few interactions with him because I was also investing in Bitcoin Cash as he was, and I had a few interactions there. But it's only now after his arrest that I was able to meet him personally for the first time, and then I could say that I befriended him. Yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I mean, listening to what Mark H had to say about their original focus being on Bitcoin, not bombs. I mean, there's a very similar ideological approach between Roger and Ian, and I think this is why they were targeted. I took interest in Bitcoin when I heard Roger speak about it at a Liberty Forum event in 2012. And at that time, he was talking about how this could end central bank tyranny and actually stop all of the wars around the world. And that was the primary use of it, to have money that anywhere in the world could use that was unstoppable and to facilitate voluntary trade and voluntary interaction. So I think this is why these two in particular were targeted when Biden decided to push his CBDC and crack down on crypto, because they're probably two of the most influential people on the planet at actually introducing people to using crypto for day-to-day commerce. I mean, it's amazing. As I travel around with my wife, we do these workshops. Most people have never heard of the idea that you can even use Bitcoin or cryptocurrency for transactions. They only know of it as a speculative investment. And so I find that to be fascinating, because as we're here, obviously everybody here is aware of crypto and has probably used crypto or using it at Porcfest itself, and most of the world is not familiar with that use case.
Yeah, and I think my impression is that he got arrested right on that time because Biden was going out of the office, and basically they had to strike to make it count. That was their last chance, at least based on these kind of charges that were going to have an anniversary of 10 years soon after. So they were just on time to claim that he made a tax offense in 2014, and then also Biden was going out, and then they striked. So it's a bit yeah just on time for them to do that. But yeah, I also believe that Roger Ver was targeted because well, actually, they were very foolish to charge him with 109 years, because that makes it very clear that it's a political prosecution. Because you wouldn't do that for a normal tax case, to ask such a ridiculous amount of years in prison. And they gave their cards away in that way, the same as they did with Ross Ulbricht. And maybe that will be his also his luck, in that it's obvious to anyone looking into this that it's not a reasonable uh, uh, case, a reasonable sentence to ask for such an offense, even if it would be true. And then they also went so far as to raid his lawyer's office. Like, I've never heard that happens in the US. Actually, when I was in Kenya, actually those agencies that went after me made false accusations to extort me. But actually, my lawyers also at one moment got threatened that if they don't cooperate with the corrupt police agency, then um, they might be also getting into trouble. But actually, never went so far as to raid uh, the lawyer's office. And then we're talking about Kenya, Africa here. I'm very surprised. I was shocked to hear, like, does that happen in the United States, that they raid lawyers' offices and take client privilege documents, confiscate that? Does that happen in any other case here?
It doesn't usually happen, although Trump has experienced some interesting situations. He saw a breach of his attorney-client privilege with his lawyer, Michael Cohen. So it doesn't usually happen, but it's something that Trump should be familiar with.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, but you see different kind of cases, why they are targeted. But I think that Roger Ver indeed, like, I think he pissed off some very powerful people with what the things he has said in the media, such as when he was talking about this kind of high up government official that was responsible for the sanctions against Iraq at the time, causing how many children to die?
500,000.
Yes, 100,000, and that Albright was the name of that government official, and that official said then also, yeah, that was the necessary thing to do, uh, and I remember Roger very crying on camera that that's totally unacceptable that the government does that. And I think with things that like that he said that he really got a target on his back that they need to shut down this person. And of course, evangelism was extremely effective also in convincing so many people to get started with cryptocurrencies. And some people think that when he released his book hijacking Bitcoin, that that's the reason why he got targeted. I don't think so. I don't think they work so fast, but because it only was 1 month, 2 months after he released that book. But that book was again an amazing job of him to really get the word out about cryptocurrencies. So yeah, um, these are my observations a bit.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about Roger and what draws me to him, and actually we're going to be talking to Mark Passio here, hopefully shortly. Um, I think about an interesting topic regarding kind of order followers. But what I like about Roger is his passion. And when you see him talk about Madeleine Albright being okay with 500,000 murders of babies, or you hear him talking about babies being murdered by the ATF, you see righteous anger. That's what comes out of Roger. And behind that is a true love for humanity and an understanding that if people can engage in voluntary trade, we will have a peaceful and prosperous earth. And that's what actually drives him. But that righteous anger, they want to shut that down. They want to shut down that spark. That's what I think this is all about. This is more about obedience to authority. I think that's fundamentally what this case is about. Certainly, they violated his constitutional rights. That's kind of normal. And certainly, they did all of these other egregious things, but they don't like it when people speak from the heart and with righteous anger.
Yeah, so I think with I agree with you. With Ross Ulbricht, it was a real miracle that he that it all fell in place as Lynn Ulbricht was explaining, um, and that he got free. There was some serious luck involved there, a lot of hard work, some serious luck, and yeah, Roger Ver is putting very hard work into trying to remain out of the shackles of the U.S. government and to try to make his case in any kind of way, looking to help himself. But I think some serious luck will be needed here too. So yeah, and I'm also a little bit. I don't know what I can do to help him more. I don't know. Uh,
Well, sign the petition. The other thing that I want to mention is that Roger does have another court hearing coming up on July the 28th at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time in LA courthouse. This is on a motion to dismiss hearing. Now, this has been changed 3 times, so it may likely be changed again. I keep on buying refundable plane tickets and refundable hotel accommodations, but I do recommend that if you can make it, please try to make it out. Showing support really does help. It helped with Ross, and I think it'll help with Roger. Although we hope Roger won't actually be hearing, because if he is, it means he's probably been extradited to the United States and is in federal prison. So hopefully Roger won't be there, even if the hearing continues.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, thanks so much for hearing me out about Roger, and yeah, really nice to be a part of the movement to try to help him to get free again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to put on my sweatshirt and we'll be right back. Mark, do you want to come up? All right. Hello?
Check, check, check.
Check, check. I'm very excited about this. Actually, Mark was on my podcast last year with Michael Rectenwald. Got it right this time. We had a very interesting conversation about, esoteric, exoteric topics. People really liked it. Actually, got a lot of positive feedback. People wanted to hear more.
Awesome.
And I know I've watched a lot of your podcasts, as many as I can. I also got the ARC, so I appreciate you sending that.
Yes.
Tremendous information. But watching the last few podcasts, I noticed you've become a little bit frustrated.
Been frustrated for a long time.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, I actually feel the same way. We have a situation where people are not taking agency.
Correct.
They're not taking control of their life. They're not taking control of their thoughts, their emotions, their actions. And this is a real problem because we can't make progress unless people actually exercise their free will.
That's right.
I don't have a particular agenda for this. This is kind of an open discussion, but
Sure. That's cool.
What do you think the problem is in terms of waking people up?
Great question. It's a question I've actually been asked here as I wander around on this little mini vacation here at Porcfest, talking with people. And I'll give you the answer that I've been giving everybody else. The problem lies with people's willingness to receive the truth. Their reception is off. It is not a matter of the truth not being present. It is not a matter of the truth not being knowable. It is not a matter of the truth not being accessible unto us. It's a matter of the human ego run amok. And the ego does not want to step aside and prepare way for the reception of truth. That's the problem with the human mind. The human mind is loaded with junk. It's loaded with junk information. It's loaded with things that people believe to be true, which are not. It's loaded with things that are not the solution, that people believe is the solution. It's like a cup that you want to put, I have a mug sitting over there on my chair, okay? I had root beer in it earlier. If I want to have a nice American pale ale beer, the root beer cannot still be in there. So you look at that as, that's not what I want, yet that's what's there. And in order for me to put what I actually want in that mug, I have to make space. I have to empty it out and make space for it to receive what I say that I want there. And that's how we have to look at people saying that they want freedom. Freedom has requirements. You don't just wish for something and it magically appears. The universe doesn't work in magical terms like that. There are requirements for states of existence. And the ego doesn't want to acknowledge those requirements. It wants to say, no, 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 no. That's not the requirement. I don't need to do that. I don't need to participate in that. I don't need to make it like that. I can have what I want, even though I haven't prepared the way for anything. I'm not receiving truth. I'm not understanding requirements. I'm not acting in accordance with those requirements. I can just magically wish for something and then receive it. And this is, for lack of any better term, how religion operates. This is a form of religion. It's a false belief that people stay rigidly attached to because they want it to be true. And people want to believe that freedom has negligible or zero requirements. They want to, we could just wish for it and it then magically comes onto us because we wanted to make it so. Freedom has very specific requirements. It requires tremendous mental and psychological and spiritual improvement compared to where the bulk of humanity is at. It is not a matter of what we even need to begin to do or put in place or create new things or invent new technologies. The state of freedom the requirements for the state of freedom are actually a matter of what humanity must cease doing, that it is already actively engaged in doing, that it has no right whatsoever to do. And that involves not only behavior, but belief. It's not just activity with the body, it's the activity of the mind. Humanity not only doesn't have the right to enslave other beings, including ourselves, it doesn't have the right to do the physical behaviors that are based in violence and aggression and a violation of other people's rights that we constantly see. It's a matter of we are even condoning that in the mind. We're even thinking and staying rigidly attached to thoughts that formulate whole belief systems that we have no right to believe. People want to think we have the right to believe whatever we want. See, this is the whole problem with the human imagination. It's our greatest potentiality and our worst enemy simultaneously. The imagination can get us to envision all kinds of betterments and ways things could be that they aren't right now. But it can also completely run amok and then envision constructural concepts like some people have authority over other people, or I don't need to actually learn how the laws of nature work. I can just wish whatever I want and then somehow magically it'll become so. There's no discipline to the human mind, largely, in most people. They haven't been disciplined in how to learn. Most people are poor learners. They don't understand methodology for learning. And once again, that's emptying the mind to make space for new experience and being fully present so that it is actually absorbed. I see so many poor learners in my own experience because, I mean, I run seminars and teach information. And I'm so meticulous about the way I go about teaching things. And I am following a formula to try to get the information through to people. And it's not flawed. It's been a methodology that has actually been used for millennia, mostly to teach the elitist children, to teach the controllers of this world, to teach their children how to learn. They don't really teach it to the average people. And the problem is people are poor learners because their minds aren't disciplined and their minds aren't present. In the attempt to receive knowledge, they're somewhere else. And it's the same thing with the potential freedom community. And I call it potential because I don't believe we have a freedom community. We have what I call the my freedom community. People who want freedom for themselves. They don't extend their worldview out much beyond themselves or their own families. To all beings. Forget just all human beings. To all beings, period. To all forms of consciousness. They don't have that kind of an expanded worldview. And so they're still locked in a state of selfishness ultimately. And when you attempt to get them to listen, they're elsewhere. Their minds are not fully present. They're thinking other thoughts. They're thinking competing thoughts and ideas that are preventing them from actually learning new ones. This is why I tell people that you have to learn truly how to be present and to be in the moment. And to do that, you got to learn to meditate. Meditation prepares the mind for learning. And it's not some pie in the sky idea. It's not some religious concept. It's a very simple concept of I'm going to stay so focused on one thing, a word, a mantra, a sound, whatever, an object, that no other thought will be allowed to penetrate my mind. And this is one of the first things I would say to really wake somebody up. You have to teach them how to focus the mind. And you teach someone how to focus the mind by teaching them how to empty the mind. If the mind cannot be guarded, if we can't put a shield up and say, I will not allow anything else to penetrate beyond this point, and I will stay completely present and focused on this one thing or idea, and I won't multitask, and I won't let my attention wander, and I will be fully present with my time and attention until I accomplish what I want to accomplish. Nobody's becoming competent. Nobody's becoming driven. Nobody's becoming truly intelligent. And honestly, this is what I see in our community. We don't need to go far beyond our family and friends. And in the wider freedom community, I don't see disciplined minds. I don't see people with like tremendous bodies of skill, and they're not competent. A lot of people are inept. A lot of people don't know how to learn. A lot of people are staying rigidly attached to false ideas, which constitute religious beliefs. You know, I mean, I say in my work, all religion needs to be destroyed. Forget about even just the cultural religions. That's not what I mean by religion. You know, like I think the cultural religions are all nonsense. Every single last one of them formulated by the controllers of our world to get people to believe in nonsense so they won't take real world action. Even set all the cultural religions aside that we generally call religions. You know how many other religions there are? There's an infinite variety of religions. If you want to know what the controllers of our world, their main job, their main MO, their modus operandi, is to create new religions all the time. They want people focused on nonsensical ideas that don't lead anywhere. They want people focused on, you know, authority, which is a religion. They want people focused on government, which is a religion. They want people even focused on money, which I consider a religion. They want people focused on all kinds of nonsensical false ideas to prevent them from learning one thing. How do the laws of nature actually function? And what do you need to do to your mind? What do you need to do in your behavior to align your consciousness and your will to those laws so that you cannot inflict self-inflicted suffering and ultimately chaos? When you're out of alignment with those laws, you're injecting chaos into your life, everyone's life around you. When you are aligned to those laws, that's when you're capable of creating things that are based in order and are based in freedom and will ultimately lead to long-term prosperity. And humanity is doing those things. We have what I call a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift was prophesied and supposed to happen in the early 2000s, leading to 2012 or whatever date, you know, a lot of people say was supposed to be the big change for humanity. Well, I got news for people. It didn't happen. It didn't even come close to happening. The requirements for freedom were not met. It's what I describe to people like you got the roof of a house is on fire, and it's going to burn the whole house to cinders. It's going to burn it completely down to ash. And there's a requirement for putting the fire out. That's where humanity's at. We had a requirement, and it was a paradigm shift in the mind. It was laying aside garbage, religion, and false ideas. And that's bringing enough water to put the fire on that roof out before it comes down to the second floor, then to the first floor, and burns the house to the foundation. And you know what humanity showed up with? Everybody all around the house, for blocks and blocks away, showed up with a thimble full of water. And you look at it and you're like, what in the goddamn hell am I supposed to do with that? That's not the requirement. That's garbage. You might as well throw that on the floor because it ain't going to do a thing if you throw it on the house. We needed multiple fire trucks loaded with water. We needed an unimaginable body of people changing their minds and then teaching others to change theirs. And it didn't happen. And I'm not blackpilled about it. I think it's possible. But possibility does not equal the will to accomplish. And our will to accomplish that great change in the mind and the human will failed abjectly, miserably, because we are not learning the actual requirements for freedom. We're skirting the periphery. We're all the way on the outside. We're not hitting the bullseye. We're not right on target where the mission needs to be. Lynn and I were discussing earlier, like, nobody can take that burden upon themselves. Nobody is the individual savior of humanity, least of all me. Yeah, I would never make that claim. Like, that would be the most ridiculous thing to ever say. That burden is not upon one person's shoulders. Who did come to save humanity? All of us. All of us came on that mission to free our species and then act as stewards of this planet and then setting examples for other places in the universe. And we just failed abjectly at that mission, percentage-wise. Some of us stayed on mission, but percentage-wise, how many people in humanity went completely way off mission and didn't really learn the requirements, didn't teach the requirements, and therefore we're on the brink of thermonuclear war, which is a very real distinct possibility. You know, people want to think good always wins. Good does not always win, folks. Evil can win. Evil is winning. Evil's winning very hugely. Okay? It's not even a close competition. Evil's kicking our ass up and down the street. If we want to turn this around, we have to be forces for good. We got to go so far beyond the paltry efforts that we have made as a movement and as a community that it's sad. It's not really joking around. I say to people that I express two emotions anymore: despair and rage. Those are the emotions that I express anymore because of how profoundly disappointed I am with humanity and, in particular, the efforts of the freedom movement. Not teaching the solutions, not meeting the requirements for human freedom. And the requirements are knowledge about how the actual laws of nature function and teaching those laws to other human beings. Getting out of religious modality of thought. Stop believing in authority. It's a nonsensical religion based on violence. I mean, could you imagine that people still don't understand that we just had this whole garbage, non-kings, no kings movement? I mean, imagine people saying no kings and then in the next step saying government's fine. We can have government, you know, imagine that. Like, government isn't kingship. Like you literally have to be mentally challenged to believe the government isn't kingship. It's the exact notion. It's the exact thing. Oh, a couple hundred years ago in the human past, we had kings, we had queens. Their word was unchallenged. They decreed something, and then they said to their order follower henchmen, anybody that disobeys, kill them, because my word is law. How is it any different today? You want to know how it's different today? Instead of a monarch that we call a king or a queen, we have an oligarchical few. And we euphemize it as government. But we still kept this idea of unquestioned authority as law. My authority is law. And it can't be challenged and it must be obeyed. And it's completely relative. It's totally morally relative, because one thing in this set of royalty or kingship or queenship or government, whatever the hell you want to call it, on this side of an imaginary line, this behavior could be perfectly fine. On this side of an imaginary line, because different government or kings and queens say that behavior is prohibited, we'll lock you in a cage for doing the exact same behavior. That's the definition of moral relativism. The very definition of a satanic tenet. The main satanic tenet is pure selfishness. Well, look around at humanity. How many people are purely locked in the ego and totally selfish and couldn't give a damn about anything beyond themselves? What percentage would you say? Would you say it's well over 95%? I think you'd be being generous if you said it was that people that don't think like that are 5% of the population. You know, I'd say it's well over 99%. Well, that's the first tenet of the satanic religion, Satanism, which is the religion that rules this whole planet. That's what the elitists believe, and that's what they've inculcated people at the lower level to believe. They've given them a smaller version of their religion so that they can control their mind. The second tenet's moral relativism. This idea, there's no right and wrong. That's just what people make up and believe in. It's just you know, whatever we say is right, that's what's right. Whatever we say is wrong, that's what's wrong. And it could change from person to person. It could change on the other side of an imaginary border. It could change at different times, you know, because just we are based on our whims, you know. I do social experiments asking people whether they think morality is objective or subjective. And 70% of the human population thinks it's subjective and relative. That's pure Satanism. And I don't say, I'm not speaking metaphorically, folks. There's a religion in this world called Satanism, and you're likely not to know about it. Because this is the elite's religion, and it's what they fervently believe in. And it's not the worship of an entity. It's that the ego is God. And then we're the lawmakers. We're going to usurp the place of creation and the laws of nature. And we're going to become God. We're going to become the authors of law, the authorities. That's literally what it means. An authority is a writer of law. That's the usurpation of the creator. I don't care what you want to call it. You can call it intelligence within nature. You could call it nature itself. You can call it God if you want. I don't really give a damn what word or you want to apply to it. Creation has laws. They work a certain way, and every other conception is incorrect other than how they actually work. And they're not unknowable. We're not here to be tortured by their unknowability. The Creator didn't create a place that's perfectly based in law and functioning flawlessly in all times and places to torment us with the unknowability of its function. It's knowable. That's not an egotistical statement to say that the laws of nature are knowable. And I'm talking about not just the physical laws. I'm talking about the behavioral laws of creation. And these are the requirements for freedom. We are bound by law in the universe. Our behavior has consequence. You do one set of behaviors, you get one result. You do a different set of behaviors, you get a different result. We're continuously doing the same behaviors, getting the same negative result that we say we don't want, and then insisting we're going to keep doing that set of behaviors and we're going to get a completely different result. That's not only insanity, that's retardation. That's exactly what that is mental retardation. And when I say this to the freedom community, I'm the bad guy. I'm black-pilled. No, I'm not black-pilled. It's very possible to achieve freedom. A black pillar wouldn't say that. They'd say you're doomed from Jump Street and it's impossible. It's very possible. We're not meeting the requirements. The will isn't there to accomplish that great work. That's what I'm so disappointed in. I thought people were better than they actually are. They're not. They've failed at the paradigm shift. They've failed at the requirements. We can still turn it around, but I mean, when I say we're on the brink, I'm not talking about back when I was telling people in 2007 and 2008 that we're on the brink. It's different. We're really on the brink of annihilation now. And it may very well happen. Evil can win. Evil can win. You don't think evil can win? Delusional. Evil can win. Evil is winning. And it can totally annihilate us. And that's a very distinct possibility. And I think that's sad because I think humanity has a lot of potential. And I'm not black-pilled. I tell people you can't be black-pilled. You got to be gold-pilled. You got to understand what the real potentialities are. You got to understand the laws of nature. You got to align your behavior to them. You got to align your behavior to behavioral law, moral law, natural law. And it's not good enough just that you do it, then you have to teach other people to do it. And most people say, oh, that's not my responsibility. Bull crap. It's everybody's responsibility. The problem is so few people have taken up that banner and run with it that it's the burden and the weight has fallen on too few people's shoulders. And that's why you could say, I'm not black-pilled, but I am jaded. I'm jaded. I'm embittered. I'm unimaginably disappointed. Once again, because I felt in my heart of hearts that we had much better potential than we showed that we do. And if people are really going to get out of this conundrum, they got to start getting on other people to abandon their nonsensical religious beliefs. And I'm talking about the belief in authority as the main religion. That's the main religion of this world. Forget the cultural religions. You know, they worked in the past, and now the cultural engineers and the mental sorcerers of our world said, we're going to invent new religions. And we're going to take the idea of kingship and we're going to extrude it into the future as government and as authority vested in an oligarchical people. It's the exact same thing as kingship. And did you think kingship was ever moral? Was kingship based in voluntary moral behavior, or was it based in abject violence? One guy saying, this is my will and it's law, and if you don't follow it, my henchmen are going to cut your head off. Pure, unconditional violence. How could that ever be moral? Government is no different than that concept, except the authority, instead of being vested in one individual, is divested into an oligarchical few individuals. And people don't want to acknowledge that basic truth, that that's totally immoral and purely based in violent behavior. And to believe in that makes you trash. And this is how it has to be said. If you're not only believing in violence, if government decrees you can't put something in your body, is that not a claim of ownership upon the body that is prohibiting that thing to be able to be put into or imbibed into? Well, if somebody can make a claim that you can't put a substance in your body, or you need their permission to do something that's right, they're making a claim of ownership upon the flesh, upon the body. Well, you know what? The claim of ownership upon someone else's body, which government does all the time through things like prohibition and taxation and licensure. Taxation is a claim of ownership of the body because it's a claim of the product of the fruit of our labor, and we perform labor with the body. So the fruit of our labor is an extension of our body. Therefore, somebody claiming that any percentage of that, no matter how small, belongs to them to take at their whim and discretion is a claim upon the body. Well, you know what? A claim upon the physical body of another, that's the definition for a particular word. And as uncomfortable as that makes people, the actual matter-of-fact reality of it is the claim of government, the claim of authority over others, the claim of all the claims that government claims that it is allowed to do is a claim upon the body of others. It's saying that you're their property. Well, that's a definition of the word slavery. Slavery. So anybody that believes in that conceptual, constructional idea of authority, of government, of the claim that it is somehow moral or right to make a claim over someone else's body, and this is how the freedom movement has to start talking about it and keep talking about it and brutally talk about it to people, is slavery. And if you're a supporter and a condoner of slavery, you're a piece of human vermin. And hardly anybody will say it just like that to other people. That's all it is. You're trash. You're immoral trash. That's how strong we got to get up in other people's faces about this religion. This is violence religion. That's what the belief in government is. Let me say that again. It's violent religion. There's a definition. There's a word. Violent religion means. You know what that word is? Cult. Cult. Government is not only a religion, it's a cult. And it's a cult of death and slavery. And this is the paradigm shift, folks. This is the paradigm shift that was prophesied back in the late 1980s and 90s. And nobody, it was very nebulous. It was all just bantered around in the New Age communities, you know, the spiritual community at the time. What's the paradigm shift? Oh, everybody's going to become enlightened and spiritual. Nonsense. That's a nebulous definition. The real paradigm shift was the abandonment of the religion of authority and violence. That was the paradigm shift that didn't happen. Humanity abjectly and miserably failed at that paradigm shift. And guess what? Opportunities like that to make a mental paradigm shift and abandon a religion that's holding back the consciousness of an entire species, planet-wide, comes along once every so many thousand years. So many thousand years. And once that opportunity is abandoned because people didn't seize it, take hold of it, and run with it, and achieve it, destruction occurs. Every single tradition throughout human history, every tradition of knowledge throughout human history has taught us about these cycles of destruction and rebirth. And we're right on the brink, on the where we can come out of that and go tangential to that circle, that's that hamster wheel, and we're going to go right back around and repeat the cycle all over again. Unnecessarily. Because all of the knowledge was present and people chose to willfully ignore it. Willfully ignore it. And when a people do that, this is one of my sayings that I want to be remembered for. And I'll close on this. Willful ignorance in the presence of knowledge is the measure of a bad person. I'll say that again. Willful ignorance in the presence of knowledge is the measure of a bad person. And I am not the judge of humanity, but boy, if I were, I would not go light. I would bring down the hammer of the gods. I would bring the Ragnarok. And we richly deserve it. That doesn't mean I'm black-pilled. That means I understand nature's laws and what it is willing to long-term tolerate. And it generally gives us that opportunity so many thousands of years. And then it says enough is enough. These babies got to go into the big meat grinder. And then maybe something new will emerge, can align with the laws of reality. Will that be humanity? I don't know. I don't claim to know that. I don't claim to be a prophet or a judge. Okay? But from what I see, we're definitely on the wrong track. And if we're going to get on the right track, what we need is a rebirth of a study of the hidden laws of reality. We need a renaissance of an understanding of nature's hidden laws that are not easy to see with our eyes, but they can be seen with our mind. If we put the mind to proper use, if we discipline it, if we train it, if we learn the requirements of nature, and then we put our behavior in alignment with those laws, then humanity has a chance. And I'll wrap up on that. If you have any questions about what I just talked about, fire away.
Well, I have some thoughts on this. I mean, I think the new authority that we're facing is a graver threat than the previous, which is technocracy.
Absolutely.
And we are moving full speed ahead.
Yes.
From both the right and the left. Even the freedom movement itself. I actually look at kind of, there are two poles of this. There's Yuval Noah Harari on the left, and there's Curtis Yarvin on the right. And they're both pushing technocracy. They're both pushing authority. And that is a big deal, even within this liberty movement.
Do you know what I call the ruling class? I call them technotronic occultocracy. And that's a big mouthful. But they are, I'm sorry, not technotronic, technocratic. They're a technocratic ruling class, meaning their rule is going to be based on technology and artificial intelligence. They are technocrats, rulers by technology. And they are occultocracy. It's a hidden priest class. It's not the people you see on the nightly news. It's not even bankers and politicians. It is occult or hidden ruling class. These are the real priest class behind all of the authoritarianism of our world. They are people whose worldview is we're going to become God. The law is going to be written by us. Our whim will be the law. That's it. And that is Satanism. That's what Satanism is. So I call them Satanists. It's the satanic ruling class that constitutes a technocratic occultocracy, a hidden ruling class. And this is what the freedom movement is also awful about. It's awful about studying the occult. We're trained by religion to think that the occult is evil or bad. It's just hidden knowledge about how the laws of the universe actually work that are hidden from people so that they could remain in ignorance and be completely controlled and enslaved. If one group of people, there's a tiny few, knows arithmetic, and they keep the knowledge of how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide from the rest of humanity, what kind of a number do you think they could do on the rest of the people? They can steal from them at their whim, at their discretion, because these people won't even know any better. They're just ignorant fools that don't even have the basics of arithmetic that the ruling class does. Well, let me tell you something. The real ruling class has hidden far more than arithmetic. They've hidden how all of the behavioral laws of the universe function. They've hidden how the real physical laws of the universe function. They've hidden technology. There's technology that they have at their disposal that they've completely hidden from the rest of humanity. And if people don't think that that's true, you're naive fools. And the freedom movement is just woefully, painfully lacking in their understanding of the occult world. It's tragic. I don't even know how much stronger I can make the language. It's abysmal. And they're never going to understand their own farmers. It's like a pig trying to understand the mind of its farmer that's getting ready to send to the slaughterhouse. This is the leap, the jump in knowledge that we need to make to understand the real controllers of this world. They don't even operate on our thinking level. We can barely conceptualize the way that they think, let alone how powerful their will is to accomplish their dark work. They're committed to that unto their deaths, committed to it in their fullness of their resources and their life. And you know what the freedom movement is? Do you know what the people who even say that they want freedom? They're just wishy-washy in their mission and what they say they want. They're not committed enough. They're not driven enough. Many of them are inept. We need to use technology to get the message out about the moral laws of the universe. This is one of the things people are woefully lacking in. How do they think it's going to happen with a megaphone on the street corner? I'm going to say something to my Aunt Patty. I mean, be realistic. Like, just logically try to think it through. If a better way of existence is going to come about, it's going to have to be communicated through the voice and amplified through technology out to the world. If you don't know how to do that, you don't know how to load a weapon to shoot the enemy. This is the modern weaponry to shoot at the enemy. And it's like going into a war ditch, and not knowing how to load and unload a rifle, not knowing how to point and aim and shoot the rifle. It's like you're not helping your team. You're not helping your side. You're not advancing the war effort. We're an informational war. This is informational warfare. And they are kicking our ass all around the town like Bruce Lee beating up on a 2-year-old. Because that's literally the divide. That's how bad the knowledge gap is. And I I didn't learn this from book knowledge. You know, I don't know whether we got into my background on the last show or if we didn't, but
It's
you know,
worth doing. It's worth doing again.
I worked with these people. I worked with these controllers. I worked with this priest class. You could say I was at the really low level of that priest class. Like I was at the level where they start teaching you the rope, grooming you up the hierarchy. And when I saw how evil it was, I'm like, no, I'm out. No way. I didn't sign up for the enslavement of my fellow men and women. I signed up to understand higher levels of knowledge, how things really work, maybe give me a leg up in my life over others in, you know, similar fields of interest or whatever, jobs. I didn't sign up to enslave the whole human species. So when I saw that's the end goal, that's where they're taking us, I said, I'm out. And they said, there's the door. We don't need you, boy. They said, you need us. And, you know, I said, I'm going to do my best to expose exactly how all of this works. And they said, go and do your best. You'll be banging your head against a concrete wall for the rest of your life to the day you die. And they were right. They told me the truth. That's exactly what I've been doing. So am I frustrated? You're damn right. Am I jaded? Absolutely. Do I believe it's possible? No. You know, possibility is a different definition. But as far as my disappointment, it's real and it's profound. And I wish people would turn the tide. But at this point, I don't really have a lot of faith in people. I have faith in the laws of nature. I don't need, as a matter of fact, let me retract that. I don't need faith in the laws of nature. I have knowledge of the laws of nature, and that trumps faith every single time. And this is what, unfortunately, the freedom movement does not have. And they still have their religions, just like the statists have their religion. And we got to do better, and we got to wake up all the way spiritually. And that's a word you can banter around in this community, and if some people get it, and in most people's minds, it's very nebulous or non-existent. And that's the problem. We have to open up our minds to true spirituality. There's a lot of fake and false spirituality. All the religions, all the New Age movement phenomena, or whatever you want to call it, they're false teachings. Natural law is the answer. Understanding the moral laws of creation are the answer. We align our behavior with that. There's no stopping humanity. We become a type 1 species in under a century. Conservatively, under a century. You know, we're not even close to that at this point. And like I say, we're probably being controlled by a civilization that might be a 1.5 on the Kardashev scale or beyond. And ultimately, the answer is the same. The solution is always the same. You got to say no to evil. You got to stop participating in evil and violence. You got to stop even condoning it mentally. You can't condone it, let alone participate in it. And most people, they have a different God than the God that created all the behavioral laws of the universe and all the physical laws for that matter. Their God is Mammon. It's the God of money. They don't acknowledge or capitulate or align their behavior to the laws of the real creator God that created the laws of nature. They're capitulating to the God of money. Because how many people will say no to evil if it means their gravy train gets cut off? See, how many people, even in the mainstream alternative media, will tell their audience that they're abjectly failing and they're not meeting the requirements for freedom? Most people won't even tell their audience that because they're interested in the clicks, they're interested in the followers, they're interested in the money that comes along with that. Where I'm different is I'm not a servant to humanity. I'm a servant to the truth and the God of creation. And I'll burn my whole operation to the ground, and I'll let every single solitary person who is ever following my work go by the wayside. I'll let any resources that come in not come in because people say I don't want to listen to this guy anymore because he's too harsh on me and others like me. And I'll live in a gutter and I'll still tell the truth. That's my only commitment, and that is my only allegiance. And that's the difference between me and other people in the mainstream alternative media. That's why I'm never on any of the mainstream alternative media. You know, a person with integrity like yourself, Aaron, will have a discussion like this with me, or let me put my views out on your platform, because you're a person of principle. Most people in the alternative media, they're not interested in principles. That they bow down at the same altar that just about everybody else bow down to, and they won't get harsh on their own audience members and followers and tell them that they're wrong just because they want that gravy train to continue to flow. That will never be me.
Sure, you can ask a question. Yeah, go ahead. If you wouldn't mind, Linus, is this mic working?
Test 1, 2. My favorite podcast, Timeline Earth, they've been working their way through Bill Cooper's Hour of the Time AM radio series. I wanted to just hear what your thoughts were on that.
Love Bill Cooper. His 40 podcast series, The Constituted Mystery Babylon, is absolute required listening. And most people have never heard about it. You know, I mean, I'll mention books that people absolutely have to read, like The End of All Evil or The Most Dangerous Superstition, things like that. Most people have never even heard about it. Mystery Babylon is one of the best exposés of the occult world that you can take in. Absolutely. That doesn't mean I agree with everything William Cooper said or ever, but I think he had a very profound series in Mystery Babylon, and everybody in the freedom community should definitely give it a listen and then explore what he talked about in it. Because it's not just about listening to the podcast and then, oh, you're done. It's like, that would be like saying, go listen to What on Earth is Happening podcast, and then you're done, and you know everything. No, you got to, that is a concrescence in a few years of source material that would take people 20 to 30 years to devour. And that's if they're a rabid reader, you know? So it's like, you know, this is just to get people's appetite wet with this knowledge. I mean, you got to research all of the source material that's talked about in it, you know? And that's a lifetime endeavor. You know, you could do it in a couple decades, or even in a decade if you're really driven. You know, I let people get the Cliff Notes version with my work with What on Earth is Happening in maybe a year. If they're dedicated to doing it, they could do it inside of a year. You know, to just receive that knowledge. But that's again to you know, maybe leverage on Bill Cooper's work, and he talked about the occult and the Western mystery traditions. This is what I tell people. The problem is the reception of the human mind as a whole in our culture, in our species. We need to prepare the mind for truth. And the Western mystery traditions are the best preparation for the mind. They are the best way to discipline and advance psychology and mentation and intellectual acumen, because they're telling us the proper modalities of reception. The word Kabbalah, which the Western mysteries are based upon, and that is not some bad or evil dark art for people that don't understand the occult world. Every occult teaching, set of occult teachings, has a negative side and a positive side, and it's all about the same knowledge and how it's used by people. So if people use it for the uplift of human consciousness, well, then that's light occultism. If they use it for control, manipulation, and enslavement, to dumb people down and ultimately enslave them and cull them, well, that's dark occultism. It's the same knowledge. The Western traditions are built upon Kabbalah, and then they advance it. People think that's the be all and end all of like the occult. No, that's the very foundation. You build on top of that. You end up with things like Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism and the Tarot tradition and Thelema and other occult traditions, theosophy. And again, I'm not just a proponent of one of them. I'm an integralist. You know, I'm a person who studies things from an integral perspective. That means you have to take in knowledge from an eclectic array of traditions and knowledge bases and then you have to distill them down to the most important elements, and you filtrate out some of the things that can be filtrated out, and then you're left with a distillation. That's what an integralist does, and that's what I consider myself. I consider myself an aggregator of knowledge and a proponent of the integral tradition of spirituality, which does not put anyone on a pedestal but studies them all equally. And in the Western tradition, the word Kabbalah, which comes from ancient Hebrew, means to receive. And there's a more connotative definition of it. It means literally, connotatively, to properly receive. People think Kabbalah is a noun. It sounds like a noun in English when we say the word. It's a verb. The word Kabbalah is a verb that means to properly receive. And this is what humanity is not integrated. They have not integrated into their makeup the proper reception modality. Just imagine if we're broadcasting here, the most powerful radio station ever broadcast, multiple millions of watts of power, let's say, okay? It doesn't matter how strong that signal that you're sending out is, if not one radio station is tuned to that frequency that you're transmitting upon. And that's what the Western traditions of consciousness allow us to do. If they're properly studied and integrated, they allow us to tune the frequency of our consciousness to that truth frequency and properly receive it. So to go back to your question, I think William Cooper was an awesome guy, great podcaster. Well, I would say the original alternative media personality. And he had a very broad and strong knowledge base. And his teachings that delved into the occult and its operations in our world were top notch. So I would highly recommend it, but I would not stop at his amalgamation or breakdown, because you can go so much further into the studies of the positive application of occult knowledge and occult traditions. That's what enriched me the most. Like when I left the dark occult world, for people who know my background story, you think I stopped learning about the occult? Like, that's when I started learning about the occult. That's what scared the living crap out of me and got me driven into learning about what the occult really is, what I had just witnessed. And there's such a rich and powerful positive tradition of the Western history traditions of occultism that's what I think we need. I've said this on many, many shows that I've been invited to participate on, like this one. We need a modern occult revival. We need a modern day occult revival into the understanding of what the knowledge of the occult really is, and then studying the traditions from an integral perspective. If humanity begins that process, there's no stopping it. It's a bomb going off in slow motion that has already been detonated. The problem that I see is we're not doing that. We're saying we know enough and we have the requirements. We're somehow going to meet them. The freedom movement not only isn't meeting the requirements, it doesn't know them. It does not know what the requirements for freedom are. How could it meet them? You know, it can't even give the simple explanation. Yeah, I challenge anybody in this room, go and talk to as many people as you want to talk to and say, what is the single governing dynamic of human freedom? That's the question. And it is true. There is one single lone governing dynamic of freedom. Here's the master key that unlocks all the keys to all the locks on all the doors, on all the cages. Forever and ever and ever into infinity. This is the key. This is Solomon's treasure. This is what's in the Ark of the Covenant. This is the Holy Grail. This is the secret of secrets. The one law that everybody needs to learn, that is the ultimate law of all creation. What is the governing dynamic of human freedom? There's one thing that governs whether an entire species is free or enslaved, and it will never be any other dynamic. And I challenge anybody to go out and ask anybody to give the right answer in one word, because there is a correct one-word answer. To all the people watching, it's not a trick question. It's not a proverbial statement, and it's not a what do you call it when the question is not a hyperbolic, but rhetorical. It's not a rhetorical question, folks. It's a real question with a real correct answer, and it's one word. It's one dynamic. What governs freedom? Try to do the experiment. I guarantee you 99% of people will give the incorrect answer, and the 1% that does give the correct answer will have learned it from me. And I'm not saying that statement to be egotistical. I'm saying it because it's the truth. The governing dynamic of human freedom, ladies and gentlemen, is morality. And I don't mean total nonsense, garbage, fake religious morality. You know what you can do with religious laws? Put them in a toilet and flush it and close the lid to the bowl, because that shit is going to stink. Okay? My little effort to be comical. Okay? That's what you could do with religious morality. I'm not talking about their fake morality, which gets people to hate morality and think it's associated with their nonsense. Because that's the problem. That's why you have so many non-spiritual people. Because religion is a clown show. Congratulations. That's my new statement. Congratulations, everybody. Where's the clown horn? I need a harp horn. Congratulations, folks. Because if people believe morality, true objective morality, is in any way associated with any garbage, nonsense, religious tradition, I feel bad for them. Like, I really feel bad that their intellectual acumen is so low and compromised. It really, that's what makes me so sad, is that this is how many people don't understand anything about anything. They really believe they have the answer in hand when they have no part of the answer in hand. I'm talking about true objective morality, saying no to evil. Don't do 7 things that constitute one thing: murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, and deception, that all constitute one thing that's the only offense. It's the only offense against all of creation: theft. Every form of wrongdoing is a form of theft. There's one law of creation: don't steal. Don't take that which does not belong to you to take. And that's what this whole planet is. It's a prison for thieves. It's a spiritual prison for thieves. And the way out of it is saying the word of all power to any form of evil. The word of all power is no. In the tradition of Freemasonry, that is the lost word. And almost every single Freemason, no matter what their degree is, doesn't know that that's the lost word. Oh, they'll say it's Jabulon or it's the Bible or whatever. No, the lost word is no, folks. That's the Freemasonic lost word. I just taught something to all the Freemasons out there. Your lodge isn't telling you the truth. They're not even teaching this what the symbolism is or what the ultimate goal of Freemasonry is, which is teaching natural law to the public and getting it right and understanding that the lost word is no, because that's the word of all power to take back all of our power from evil. Is we say no, we're not cooperating. The end. There goes the whole control system. But they make an offer. Thank you. They make an offer to us. Will you do this evil for this paycheck, for this much money, for this much mammon, for this much toilet paper? Isn't even worth the amount of money of toilet paper to wipe your ass with? Yeah, give me more toilet paper. I'll go and do the evil for you, as long as that toilet paper shows up in my bank account. And again, I don't want to get too over the top negative, but it's like, if you don't think that that's most people, and they'd stab their own mother in the back for more money, and that's the God that they're worshiping. Once again, I feel tragically bad for people that are that naive and have that much faith in humanity, because they're children. psychological children. 99.9% of humans will stoop to any level of evil, and the Milgram experiment shows it. As long as they're offering enough money, or as long as they're not responsible, because that's all people of this planet want. They're worshipers of comfort. They're worshipers of money. They're worshipers of get responsibility out of my face. I want no part of it. That's what they worship. They worship those dynamics. And we think we're going to get the job done when we're an infinitesimally grain of sand on the beach that isn't growing because we're not even learning the technology to put the word out. And while the technocratic elite class is developing all these AI systems that inculcate us deeper and deeper into Satanism, deeper and deeper into the egoic mindset, deeper and deeper into moral relativism, it's not even a close fight. I would love it to be a close fight. I would love to see it be a tooth and nail battle, between good and evil. But evil occupies 99.9% of humanity's mind and heart. And it's just our efforts were not enough. Like if we really get up off of our lazy asses and really get to work learning what the real requirements and dynamics that are important here are, and stop pushing nonsensical garbage solutions, we'll make progress. If not, love slavery, because you're going to get nothing but that. Get used to it and love it. And that will be what humanity has richly deserved. Sure. Her question was, how are the forms of violence, violations of someone's natural law rights, all forms of theft, which is just the statement I made. Didn't explain how each one is a form of theft. Well, murder is the unrightful taking of a life. That's theft of a life that doesn't belong to you to take. Not talking about self-defense. That's different. That's a different behavior. Killing in self-defense is a different behavior than murder. That's why one is called killing in self-defense and one is called murder. They're two different words or phrases for different definitions of things. So murder is unlawful, unrightful taking of life. It wasn't yours to take. That's theft. Assault is the theft of well-being that you had no right to take. Once again, that's not bodily self-defense. That's assault. That's who started it, who initiated the violence. So if you initiate the violence, that's an assault. That's what the government always does. They almost always initiate the violence. They never protect anybody because they always show up after the violence has been committed and then try to go get the perpetrator of it, if it is even violence. Sometimes they're the ones outright doing the violence or preventing people from engaging in rights that are theirs, and that's violence, to stop someone from engaging in a natural right. So in any event, assault is the taking of physical well-being without right. That's theft. Rape is the theft of free will sexual association with another. That's theft. You're taking someone else's free will sexual association. Trespass is the theft of securing one's property of living. That's a form of theft. Physical theft is the stealing of property. That one's self-explanatory. Coercion is the theft of someone's free will if they're engaging in a right, or if they don't wish to participate in a behavior that they have every right to not participate in, like giving over the product of their labor to a thief. That's why taxation is theft. It is immorality. It is violence. It is theft. So coercion is theft of free will of another being to engage in their rights. And finally, deception. Deception is the theft of someone's ability to make informed free will decisions based on accurate information. And if you knowingly pollute the field of information with deception, you are taking away someone's ability through distorting the field of information, correct decision making. You're distorting their ability to make informed decisions, and that is a form of theft. So that's the way that all of the 7 transgressions against natural law are all forms of one thing, theft. Therefore, moral laws of creation are actually so knowable, they're so simple, they're almost stupid. This is remedial nursery school stuff, folks. It's 2 words, don't steal. You know, okay, I threw a conjunction in there. Do not steal. Don't steal with a conjunction, 2 words. If you can't understand that, once again, you're beyond remedial. It's retardation. And that's why I don't have much sympathy for people these days. They're not committed to intelligence, to holistic intelligence. They're real committed to cleverness. They're real committed to all kinds of ideas that go in all kinds of tangents and patterns and waves. But 100% elegant simplicity that comes from the mind of the cosmos somehow just passes them by. So that's not real intelligence, which is one of the requirements for human freedom. That's one of the main requirements, is knowledge. And that has to come through holistic intelligence. And unfortunately, the bulk of the body of humanity does not have it.
Well, I think we have an issue with people being programmed and indoctrinated, and that indoctrination has gotten significantly worse. I think I saw something today that they're actually changing the SAT because people can't read long form text anymore, so they're removing long passages.
Yeah.
The reading and writing sections, literally. And so
scary.
It is scary, but knowing this, so, I mean, tactically, how do we? People aren't receptive in part because they literally have been programmed to not have the facility to.
So here's going to be one of the harshest things I'm going to say. The answer is parenting. And this is the problem. Parenting is garbage. It has been garbage. We don't want to instill our children with a thirst for knowledge, with a reverence for knowledge, with a drive to acquire and achieve knowledge. We want to throw them on a device so they're out of our hair and let them just develop a shorter and shorter attention span, where again, as you're saying, they can't even read books anymore. And then we want to say, we're raising our children. Not raising them, burying them. Burying them. And guess what? People will say, you're not qualified to say things like that because you're not a parent. Bullshit. I'm eminently qualified because I understand most of what is required for proper education. This is the bulk of what I do. Understanding what the real is versus the artificial. Understanding the difference between the natural and the mentally constructural. And being able to teach that so it can be readily seen and understood. And nonsense and BS can be seen and spotted like that if we're actually teaching our children truth discovery methodologies. But we're not. We're not doing that as parents. We're not doing that as educators, as so-called educators. Children coming up today, I've observed. I am a keen observer of people. I eavesdrop on people blatantly. To just do it as a social experiment. Listen to what people say when they don't think I'm listening. Listen to what children talk about, or even just teens or whatever. Just young people in general. Their minds are tragically, barbarically, embarrassingly undisciplined. And the minds of the young people who are very disciplined, people who are going to become the next control and enslaver class. I guarantee you their minds are not as undisciplined as the plebs children's mindsets. They're disciplined, they're honed, they're focused, they're driven, they're taught the correct educational methodologies. They're taught the trivium process, which we're not teaching our children. People don't even know what it is, let alone teaching it to their children. We're not teaching our children the thing that in the Roman Empire, the ruling class elitists forbade any free person in the empire, anybody in their political hierarchy, to ever teach a member of their slave class. It was a crime to teach the trivium to a slave. In Egypt, it was a crime to teach their version of the trivium to a slave. In the Greek Empire, it was a crime to teach the trivium methodologies to the slaves. In our culture, you want to call it that, our civilization, our society, the trivium is out there in the open to be learned and used, and people don't do it of their free will and send their kids to the very institutions that are teaching them nothing but enslavement mindset, how to be a good slave, indoctrinated into what to think instead of how to think. The trivium is the real methodology that will train a mind how to think, especially a young mind and an inquisitive and inquiring one. It's all bad parenting. That's the ultimate answer to your initial inquiry there. Parenting is just as much garbage as the mindset of most people on this planet. And it's got to improve unimaginably drastically compared to where it is at today. So, I see that happening in, once again, thimble full when the whole roof of the house is on fire and we got a thimble of water. That's how many people are properly homeschooling and mentally disciplining and teaching their children true methodologies of learning instead of shoving them into a public school institution and saying, let the state educate my children. It's too few. We're an hour late and $1 short, and I'm telling you, there's not a lot of time to turn it around at this point, because like the hammer's coming down now, folks. Hammer's coming down now. So don't say the people didn't tell you and the people weren't warning you from Jump Street. I've been doing this almost 20 years now, and the only thing that has come true is exactly what the dark occult Satanists told me. You're going to be banging your head against the wall for the rest of your life, boy. That's about what came true, because the paradigm shift sure as hell didn't.
Well, we discussed last time the fact that we are really losing ground quickly.
Yeah.
And people really need to do hard shadow work.
Right.
And I know last time we talked, you were working on something related to shadow work. We also talked about, are we at the point where maybe using psychedelics or ayahuasca where we need a jolt because we're that far?
I'm on a halfway decent dose of psilocybin right now. But yeah, absolutely. No, it's a small one. I've been using microdoses for shadow work actually, and I have mixed results, and it's difficult to tell until you really integrate the process for a while. I've gotten off to a very bad start to the year. In the first 3 months of the year were very, very bad for me. And I would say dumped a whole new set of trauma on me. It was bad enough last year. I lost my dad, to turbo cancer because he took all the clot shots and, boosters. Didn't want to listen, afraid of every little imaginary thing that comes down the pike, afraid of germs. It's like intelligent guy until it comes to like fear of germs, then all of a sudden I'm going to listen to everything the government tells me to do. My mother, who has really not been that great in her intellectual understanding of things in the past, at least listened to me and didn't take the shots, So, that's a small win. But, I think that some people's minds are so calcified that they need large doses of psychedelics. I think psychedelics can be plant medicines as long as they're used in a proper conscious context, not just willy-nilly for entertainment or for partying. Psychedelics are tools of decalcifying a calcified mind. They're here to bring us back to a state of sanity. If they're used incorrectly, yeah, they can invoke psychosis. It's a double-edged sword. They're dangerous tools. They're tools that require navigation. That you have to learn how to use them. You got to treat them with respect. It's a form of consciousness. Plant kingdom is not unconscious. Provides through the sun all of our nutrition, where we ultimately get it all. And it's the psychedelics that are in the form of plant consciousness here have lessons to teach us. Some of them are gentle ones, some of them are harsh ones, some of them are ones that we probably don't even want to go anywhere near right now. But I think in particular, cannabis and psilocybin can be gentle teachers. We don't use them to just escape or blow our minds out. They're used in a conscious context, sure. It can be a help for people who need that assistance and can't really do it on their own because they become too weak mentally and psychologically. And literally what psychedelics mean is psyche means mind, and delun, the Greek noun, means, psychedelic, psyche delun. It literally means reveal the inner workings of the mind. The literal etymological definition of psychedelic is to reveal the workings of the mind. And I think that is what they do, again, if we approach them with respect and use them in a very conscious context. Not advocating for the, unconscious party use of these compounds. Never have. So, psilocybin has been a tool that I've been personally using. And I probably will continue to use it as long as it helps me with progression toward resolving some trauma, maybe being a little bit more tolerant of people's ignorance, because I can be, some people cannot hear it from me. I go right in on them. I'm swinging uppercuts. I'm coming out like Tyson. I'm going to hit you with an uppercut. I'm not the gentle teacher. You want that? Go listen to somebody who is going to guide you by the hand like a little kid. Now, I'm talking like I'm talking to an adult who's capable of hearing. So that's my approach. Not everybody has to take that approach. But absolutely, I think they can be tools to help people. I think more than anything, it's the knowledge of the occult that will really awaken people. You want to go to full awakening, you got to understand what the occult hides, why it hides it. It hides it because it doesn't want a transformation into human enlightenment. Why do you think it tells you that's evil? Don't go near it. Because all the real evil priest class doesn't want you learning what they already know and what they're holding you back from learning that can truly turn you into an enlightened being that can't be controlled. They don't want no part of that in the human population. So their religions that they invented are going to tell you, oh, make sure you don't go near this body of knowledge because that's evil and bad. That's of the devil. That's dark-sided. It's like, we want to stay in some mentally challenged child mindset and not grow up into the understanding of the laws of nature that govern all of us. It's pathetic. I'm not going to say, I think what a really good teacher does with a student body, if they're charged with the education of the student, I'm not for rigorous examination, like exams on paper, right? I'm for looking at what the student has learned and how they're applying it in the real world, and then making an accurate gauging of that progress. So it's like if the student's going like this over time, I'll do it left to right. This is time and this is progress. If the student's going like this, should you pat them on the back and go, great job, guys, you're doing so well? No, you're doing a disservice to someone like that. Because at least if they're doing this, give me a 15-degree angle and you'll put a smile on my face. I don't need asymptotic growth. I need a linear progression over time that's a gentle curve. And then you put a shit-eating grin on my face, okay? But we can't do this. You can't coast over time and not make improvement. And that's what most people want to do. They want to say, it's not my responsibility. That's someone else's charge. I'm not responsible. And I'm just going to coast through life. And it's not, my learning curve is never going to go like that. And I got news for everybody. That ain't going to get the job done. That's going to get us all killed.
When I was talking to Dan about this originally, the topic we were going to talk about was order followers. I don't know if you want to chime in on that.
The lowest form of life in the universe.
Yep.
The absolute most verminous trash form of life that has ever existed upon any planet, anywhere in the cosmos. Yeah. Oh, I could talk on them. I love those guys. I mean, they're my pride and joy. I mean, they keep us safe. Thank you for your service to the evil satanic worldwide empire. You're really serving them well, Could you imagine being a person who says, I don't want to know what's right or wrong. I want to take money from these losers over here and do their will to conduct violence on other people who are ignorant as well, but I'm just going to do it to my own kind. I mean, imagine the kind of trash you got to be. More than that, imagine the kind of trash for parents they had to have. Imagine how abjectly, barbarically, miserably the parents of those people failed them as human beings. Why aren't we saying that to these people? Why aren't we telling the parents of order followers, you guys are trash, raised trash? You think you instilled morality in your son and daughter who does this job for enslavers and Satanists? How can people think in today's day and age that propping up a system of authority is moral when all it's doing is perpetuating kingship, the religion of kingship, the religion of violence, the religion of slavery? These order followers and the police and the military are the enforcers of human slavery. And that's what they always have been. That's what they always will be. Get as offended as you like. Doesn't matter how mad or angry you get over the statement. It's still going to be true forever and ever and ever and ever. It's the eternal truth. Not my opinion. I'll go so far as to say this. The greatest crime against all of creation is to do behavior to other beings that you were told to do without betting that it is moral behavior first. And that is exactly what these people are. Therefore, they're the most degraded and lowest form of consciousness that exists. That's why, Aaron, I do not go on all my shows, podcast shows that I'm invited on, and go, let's just talk about the elitist Satanists and they're the problem, and let's point fingers, and let's go find all of their names and addresses and then kill them or whatever. Because what? You're not going to have 10 million people that want to take their place for the paycheck that they're going to receive? We have an immoral population. Forget the rulers of the population. They came from the population. The population had to be immoral to raise rulers who were immoral. The population is to blame. Nobody wants to say this. The average human being is to blame for the state, for the condition of human slavery on this planet. And until the average intelligence and morality of the body of this species, the average body of humanity in the aggregate is raised to a far higher level of consciousness, once again, expect nothing but enslavement, death, and annihilation and chaos. That's all that can be garnered and received from the kinds of thoughts and behaviors we put out into the world. The universe is just a mirror unto us for our thoughts and behavior. And guess what? The state of slavery we have, that's the best we could muster as a species. How unimaginably pathetic is that? That is the most pathetic thing that I can think of. And I mean, my everyday prayer to the cosmos is send a comet. That's my everyday prayer, how totally lost this species is. And again, people will say that's being black-pilled. I think we are capable of turning it around with an unbelievable willpower that we would have to summon and drum up and push forward. Do I see it? No. That doesn't mean I'm black-pilled. Black-pilled means you think it's impossible. It cannot be done. You think that an ant can be taught calculus. It cannot be done. That is not what I think about human freedom. I do not think it is unachievable. I think it is a very achievable goal if the requirements for that condition are met through our thoughts and behavior. We're nowhere near meeting those requirements. We are pathetic at meeting those requirements. And the problem is most people can't even hear what I have said throughout this whole thing. They can't hear it. They're so trapped in the state of the ego that they literally cannot hear the language and derive an understanding from the words. I genuinely believe that that's how degraded a lot of people have become. That doesn't mean that they can't improve. A stupid person can become an intelligent person. A lazy person can become a driven person. An uncaring and apathetic person can become a caring and compassionate person. Believe me, I know. I am direct experiential knowledge of those facts because I was all of those former states. And worse, I was a black-hearted Satanist. And if I can come into the knowledge that I've come into and not only understand it, but teach it to other people, any human being is capable of doing that with enough effort. This is the problem. We're told that life is all about comfort, enjoyment, pleasure, and just seeking whatever is the highest form of comfort in the moment for ourselves. That's not the purpose of life. There is a knowable and true purpose to human existence. It is to learn, it is to grow, it is to expand in awareness and consciousness, it is to learn the laws of nature that are prevalent all around us and manifest all around us and knowable and are revealed all around us, and to bring our behavior into alignment with those laws that we proffer and move on to even higher states of consciousness. And that's absolutely doable. So I'm not black-pilled, folks. I'm gold-pilled, but I'm a realist. And when you see the track that somebody's been on, you can see where the destination they're going is. And if you know that the destination they say they want to go is way over there, and over years and years and years and years, they've been going this way, they're not going to that destination, they're going to that one. That's a discernible, knowable difference. And that's all I'm saying. It's very possible for us to reverse course. At this point, we're so close to the destination, which is a chasm where there's jagged rocks at the bottom, that I don't know if we can pull up and make that 180-degree reversal and go to the destination we say we want to go to. Maybe it's still possible. Maybe it's not. That still doesn't mean that I'm black-pilled.
Well, how do we summon that willpower?
The willpower is summoned by the discipline of the mind and the spirit. You have to learn the methodologies for self-transformation to become self-actualized. And part of that is you got to set aside the childish notions that you once believed in. You have to stop believing in religion that's been believed in for millennia and millennia and millennia and has gotten us nowhere except fighting with each other and bringing the earth to the brink of nuclear annihilation. So things like that have to be set aside. Then you got to start learning how things really work. You have to be driven to it through care. The heart is what drives us to that willpower. See, the heart drives our will and then activates our learning, our knowledge. So the heart's in the middle of the body. And that's what the G in the middle of the compasses and square in Freemasonry means. It means the heart, the generative principle. The generative principle of all creation is care. If you don't care, you're not motivated to do anything. If you don't care, you're not motivated to learn. You got to care so much that you're not only motivated to take action, to do something, to really learn how the laws of nature work, but you have to be driven enough to continue and do the requirements, even if it means you have to make sacrifices to do it. You might have to lose other things in life to advance that aspect of yourself. You have to care enough. I know so many people that are like, oh, I care about the outcome of humanity. Well, what are you doing? No, I'm not doing anything. I just watch things. I'm like, well, that's not caring enough. That's you saying you care. There's a difference between saying you care and actually caring. And that comes out the same way everything else does. You'll know people by their deeds. What do? Are they speaking? Are they teaching? There's this saying in the occult, the universe is spoken into existence. Everything was spoken into existence. It's all sound and vibration. The creator stories, the creation stories are about the creator speaking the universe into existence, saying, let there be light, and then there was. Well, how we are a small G God creator, is we have to use our voice. We got to use our voice to change the story, to change the entire, cultural mythos that we're bathing in. We have to take the reins of those narratives and tell a better story. Tell a story that's based in truth, not lies, not deception, not wishy-washiness, not wanting things and not being willing to meet the requirements to do them. And so if more people speak and more people teach this kind of stuff and more people inspire people to, study the occult world, then there's going to be a renewed interest in it, what I call the required occult revival that we need and don't have. And then maybe we'll make that paradigm shift. But again, the ultimate answer to your question is you have to care enough, and true care for betterment has to drive your behavior. That's the only way you're going to get there. You can't be apathetic. Me saying that I don't think humanity may make it is not me being apathetic, because I've practically exhausted my will to try to make the better outcome happen. The problem is it was just too few people getting on board with that kind of an effort, and people getting derailed and sidetracked into non-solutions, where the only solution is true objective morality. Nothing else will ever create human freedom. It is the governing dynamic and the generator of human freedom. And in order to do that, we have to care enough to drive our will to learn how the laws of creation actually work, and teach that to other people through the technology that we have available unto us.
I guess we need to figure out how to teach people how to care. That seems to be a missing piece. And
that's why you have to get to children early, because once we put care in the grave, it's very difficult to resurrect it. That's why there's gotta be good, conscious parenting and teaching children not only what they need to teach the children how to learn. Even more importantly, they got to teach children why they have to learn certain things. And that's what's going to instill care into the young and future generations. Children will care when parents have developed care and then nurture that into their children. So it's all about conscious parenting. If conscious parenting prevails, the world could go in a drastically different route. If we don't have conscious parenting, forget it.
Well, my kids are back there, so I hope they're listening.
So I know you're probably doing a magnificent job with them, teaching them these principles. So, that's all we can hope for. I can't, force anybody to listen or share things or teach things. We can put the word out there. We can prevail upon people's reason if we explain it in a logical way, and hope that people care enough the right thing. And that's what I'm trying to inspire people to do.
So what are you working on next?
The main project this year, in all honesty, right now, I've been taking time for just self-care, to be quite honest. Like I said, last year I went through some trauma, and the beginning of the year was back-to-back traumas. And um, so, for a little while, I'm just kind of resting after I did a technology seminar that I give half the year um, to basically anybody who wants to learn um, techniques for putting this knowledge out online. I call it how to become the true media. It's not the mainstream media. It's not the mainstream alternative media. It goes even beyond that. This is how to be a servant of the truth and utilize the technology that we have at our disposal to put the truth out there for others. So I do that from January through June. It's called How to Become the True Media. And then this year, at least in the second half of the year, in November, I'm giving an all-day seminar online called Shadow Work. And this is something that I've planned for a long time because I think psychological and mental improvement is the number one thing that people have to learn to do. So I'm going to be teaching like preparatory work to do shadow work. It's not like you just jump into the techniques for shadow work. You have to do preparatory work for that. So I'll be getting into, not only just, the concepts about what it is, what you're doing, what types of improvement are you making, what types of things are you looking at within yourself, but I'll be getting into, again, what's preparatory work for that. It's like, you might want to, have knee pads if you're going to do some exercises that have you go down on your knees. Preparing for what you're going to have to do the exercise. So that's going to come first. Then I'm going to go into methodologies. So how do you actually perform this work upon yourself? What do you do? What are the steps? Physically, what do you do? And, a lot of it's just going to be about initially meditation, learn to quiet the mind. A lot of it's going to be learn how to sit quietly. There's so much extra chatter and noise that we don't need. It's like people are afraid of quiet. They're afraid of not speaking. They say awkward silence. Silence is where knowledge and information comes into you from, because you're making space for it. Most people don't know how to make space in the mind. That's an undisciplined mind. I liken it to the tradition of Freemasonry. I talk about this in some of my work. The logic system, regardless of what anybody thinks about it, I'm just telling you how it works, is before they begin the business of the lodge on any given day, the lodge is what is called Tyler. So there's a Tyler. Okay, that's the person who makes sure there's no intruder into the lodge while the business of the lodge is being conducted. And this is an allegorical mental metaphor, because the whole thing about Freemasonry is the improvement of the mind and psychology and morality and the behavior of the individual. So the lodge represents the mind. And the Tyler of the lodge stands outside the door and says, no intruders may enter once the task is being conducted. That's the discipline of the mind. That's us saying to ourselves, I'm going to be fully focused and committed on the task at hand. And I'm going to Tyler the lodge here. And no intruders are allowed. That's pure focus on the task at hand. And that's what the allegory means. It's not a literal thing, it's all symbolism and metaphor and allegory, and parable. And this is why people take everything literally. They take religious traditions literally. They take occult traditions literally. They don't see the symbolic language that is being communicated to them. And this is to bypass the conscious mind. But we become so rooted in that distracted conscious mind, we don't need symbolism going to the subconscious. We need to explain those symbols. We need to explain the methodologies right out in the open. That's why I don't consider myself, I consider myself both an occultist and a de-occultist. An occultist in the sense I've studied all of these traditions and how they relate metaphorically to what humanity needs to do. But I'm a de-occultist because I'm not keeping them secret. I'm revealing them to everybody, which is what the occultists say not to do. Oh, it's too dangerous. Well, we're on the brink of nuclear annihilation. I think we've actually undergone the danger of not bringing this knowledge out into the open. It needs to be brought out into the open and shared widely and freely with everybody. And then maybe we'll have a shot at getting out of the mess that we've created for ourselves. But unless that knowledge is shared widely and freely, forget it. There's no chance. It's like bend over and kiss your ass goodbye if we don't get that knowledge out into people's hands, into their minds, into their hearts, and they get to work on integrating it and teaching it.
Great. Well, where can people find out about the shadow work?
So if you want any more information on shadow works coming in November 25, November 22nd, it's going to be an all-day. I'm hosting it on Telegram, and you can get more information about that all-day seminar from my main website, which is whatonearthishappening.com. Whatonearthishappening.com. All my work for free at that website. I, do have physical copies that, I make available in my gifts area, along with other, merchandise. But all of the information that I have ever put online is available for free on the website, whatonearthishappening.com. I also have howtobecomethitruemedia.com if you want to learn how to actually do the technological tasks that are required for disseminating knowledge. You can check that website out and enroll from October through January. I open enrollment for that seminar, and then the seminar is conducted January through June. So I just wrapped up this year's. And then one other website I run is called the One Great Work Network, onegreatworknetwork.com. And that's a collection of conscious content creators. I'm like the curator on that site, and I invite people onto the site to share their knowledge base. And we have, I think, somewhere over 75 content creators. We're going to be adding more. And, that's where you can find all of my work. So One Great Work Network, howtobecomethitruemedia.com, and whatonearthishappening.com is the central website where you can find all the others.
Great. Thank you. Well, I see the lights are starting to flicker, and I think we have a huge storm coming. So we might want to wrap this up. Do you have any final thoughts before we end?
Final thoughts is thank you for what you are doing. When we met in New Jersey, I thought it was a great seminar that you gave. You said things about crypto and Bitcoin that I've been thinking for over 7 years or more, and have basically said on my show. When you interviewed me on your podcast, I thought we went great material and you had great questions. So thank you, Aaron, for what you're doing. And that's all I can hope for or expect from somebody else is just put their knowledge out there, share what they have come to learn, try to uplift human consciousness. And if people are doing that, like I said, I have no issue or problem. It's when people just say, "Oh, it's not my responsibility. I don't want to help improve anything. I just want to live my life in selfishness." That's where we can't go, and we can't stay there. We have to aspire to something beyond ourselves, and that involves putting aside the ego and learning about the requirements for freedom and then meeting them. And we do that by educating ourselves and then educating others. So I'd say that's where I'll leave it. And if anybody else wants to look into my work further, whatonearthishappening.com would be the place to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Aaron.